Welcome back. This is still the POLITY reaching you live from Abuja. Like I said before the break, we'll be taking a look at the the Federation Account Allocation Committee and how much it says it has shared between the federal government, state governments, and even local governments from the June allocation. We know that due to the floating of the naira, we've seen some resultant increase in this allocations. At this time around, particularly, the issue of the sharing took a different layer when the government or the state governments decided that they would only share 907.05 billion naira out of the proposed 1.9 trillion, and saying that this was as a result of reducing or not worsening inflation in the country. But we'll take a look at this now. I've been joined now in the studio by Dr. Mefor. He's a social scientist and a policy analyst. He's just been able to do justice to the matter. Good afternoon and welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
It's good to have you.
Thanks a lot.
All right, so what do you make of this? It is said that at the meeting, they agreed, or they came to an agreement that they would only share 900 billion and leave the rest with the CBN to shore up external reserves, saying that there was already a lot of money in circulation. What do you make of this? Will I call it a special agreement that did not even, lead to ruckus like we've seen in the past? We know in the past, some state governments used to fight the federal that share it all. We need our money. We want to work. But this time around, everyone seems to be in agreement.
Well, for me, the development on the surface, it looks good because it creates the impression that the governors are in tandem with the presidency on the need to keep something aside for the rainy day, so to speak, because whatever they have in the external reserves there is still a kind of savings for the country to fall back on, apart from using it to stabilize the naira and all that. You can still take from it when the need becomes urgent and necessary to address certain things. So it is a sort of savings, so to speak. And I recall when Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala was emphasizing the need to keep something aside. When Nigeria set up what we call the sovereign wealth fund and so on and so forth. Sovereign wealth fund, I think it was instituted in 2012 under Jonathan, and they are all meant to really keep something aside, because the sovereign wealth fund, for example, was meant to be an account for saving excess proceeds accruing from crude oil. So usually federal government makes its own budget, the annual budget based on certain benchmarks. So if for some reason economic windfall, we are able to exceed the expectations within that fiscal year, the excess is what is invested in the sovereign wealth fund. But you see, the governors challenged this the idea of saving money for states in the past. I recall under the chairmanship of Rotimi Amaechi as he was the chairman of the Governors Forum and also the governor of Rivers State. They went to court to challenge this idea of federal government saving for states, and they won. They actually won. You know why? In a federal system, federal government does not have what you may call overriding powers over the states in a proper federal system of government. So if the federal government now assumes that it can save for states, it cannot do so without express permission of the states involved. That is why I said that this is a very interesting development, because states are giving their consent. If they had said no, there is nothing the federal government can do. If you insist on saving, they will go to court. There is already a judgment in their favor, by the Supreme Court, that in the federal system of government, in the federation, the federal government cannot save for states. But now that they have given their consent, I think it's in order. But there will still be a problem. What happens in the future when federal government takes from, accesses such money without a cost to states and apply it to only a federal concern and not spread it to states? These are some of the things. I don't have the details of their agreement, but these are things that may lead to serious disagreement in future. And when that happens, we may be forced to review our view today. Our view today that is a good development may turn awry in future when the federal government, in its usual callous way, pounces on any fund that ought to be shared or ought to belong to the 3 tiers of government. Let me give you an example. When federal government recovers what we call a loot, for example, the Abacha loot, the Abacha loot was taken from Nigeria. The question is, the Abacha loot that is kept by the federal government, is it supposed to be for the federal government alone? Because Abacha took it from federal revenue. There is no evidence that the money Abacha took was belonging exclusively to the federal government. And it's not the only one. There are other recoveries like that. I'm giving that as an example of where federal government will just assume some right over what ought to belong to the 3 tiers of government. In Nigerian Federation, you have 3 tiers. And these 3 tiers have allocations, They have allocations going to them as contemplated and stipulated by the extant provisions of the 1999 Constitution. So if you refer to federation, federation account allocation, right? Committee action, it's talking about federation. The federation here, it must apply to mean local government, states, and the federal government, the 3 tiers. The federal government, yes, is what you may call of course, is the federal, is the supreme structure in the country, but the states enjoy a measure of autonomy. So where there is express mention of one thing in the Constitution, there is an express exclusion of another. So if the federation account is supposed to be an account created by law and an account that must be maintained for and in favor of the 3 tiers of government, we have to be certain that the federal government does not meddle with the funds and appropriate unto itself such funds. And in the past, there has always been accusations, of course even by states, that the federal government is dipping into the money that belongs to all. Do you understand that? And running a rough shoulders over them is a kind of you take it or leave it kind of thing. So forcing the states to now rely on the courts to see if they can gain remedy. You recall in the recent past, when the governors went to court over certain money recovered, or certain payments arbitrarily, made by the federal government to consultants that recovered money. Do you understand that? Yeah. There is a case. That case is still in court. The case is still in court. The federal government, via the office of the Attorney General, is deciding what should be paid to who. It should be. It must be a joint understanding and agreement. But the federal government would insist on recruiting the consultants and pay them whatever they wish, without recourse to the states and the local governments. So if you look at this policy from that perspective, you will say that it leaves a sour taste in the mouth, because at the end of the day, the federal government may not remain as gentlemanly as they are at the moment. So, that's my first shot at that.
All right, that's fair enough. Well, let's talk about the decision itself,
yes,
and the sensibility of it. They're saying there's a lot of money in circulation already, so they want to reduce that. But let's talk about, a little bit of economics here. Is this the right time to be saving? We've heard the mantra so long that you cannot save yourself out of poverty.
So
is this really a nice decision?
Most of most of the governors are new. They just came in, barely 2 months old in the saddle. So most of these policies are waved, at them, and they just take it. Because here is a time when we are saying you need money to do something about palliatives.
Yes.
Even if you recall, the last National Executive Council meeting, right, presided over by Vice President Shetima, they decided that the issue of palliatives would be handled by the states. Do you understand that?
Yeah.
Now, what are these palliatives we are talking about? Even the NEC recommended cash transfer. So which cash now? Do you understand that? We know that most states in Nigeria are owing salaries. Most states in Nigeria are owing pension. Many, in fact, up to 15 states in Nigeria are not yet paying 30% minimum wage. Yet the same state governors are saying they don't need money now. The money should be put aside because it will trigger inflation or worsen inflation in the country. I don't think that is even if it's going to maybe trigger inflation, inflationary rate to go a bit higher. I don't think that when compared to the immediate need we have now, particularly the urgency in the need to provide some palliatives to Nigerians, to be able to take care of over the problem the harrowing experience that they are going through, they are facing as a result of removal of fuel subsidy and the twin policy of floating of the naira. These are more critical issues that are causing inflation than the balance of about 800 billion that may be injected in the system if the money is shared now. It will not. So in principle, I'm yet to understand how that, has become a more overriding decision, to save the economy from further inflation than save the citizens from perishing altogether. Do you understand that? The states need to procure buses. That is money. The states, because for me, I don't believe in the so-called conditional cash transfer. It's not what the people need. People need money to be injected in certain aspects of the economy that will benefit the weak segment of the society. For example, injecting money in a place like health. We were, you are looking at even the education sector. If you look at the education sector, the crisis there is about fund. So, can they devote such money, right? Can they devote such money to cure once and for all the crisis we are facing in the university system? The reason why ASU was on strike for 8 whole months. And even before then, around 2020-21, they were on strike again for 9 months, making it a total of 17 months wiped off the academic calendar. And from the lives of Nigerian youth who were caught up in the web in that moment. So I don't believe that the decision is right. It may have some merit, but the demerits are more. Because the problem we are facing at the moment, we need money to deal with them. I just gave an example of bus, right? That each state needs to procure dozens of urban transportation, means to be able to connect the local governments to the center, interlocal government and even interstate and so on and so forth. That way, you are somehow bringing palliatives to the people. States need money to procure fertilizer for their farmers. States need money to do so much. To even, things as basic as, road rehabilitation. Most roads are deplorable, impassable. And if you have such problems and you're saying you are more worried about inflation, I really don't know if these new governors understand the problem confronting the people. I'm not sure that they have even understood what the National Executive, National Economic Council said, that is the states that will handle palliatives. Maybe they are expecting that the federal government will transfer the money, the $800 million that they got from World Bank to the states to be able to implement. Do you get the point? Even if the federal government will give you all that, it will still not be enough. You will need a lot more, to be able to take the load off the neck of Nigerians, so that Nigerian masses will be able to breathe. They can't breathe at the moment. Do you know that there are some state governors that have now announced that, officially workers don't need to come to work for more than 3 times?
Yeah.
Do you know what that means? What that means is that you are now sacrificing and writing off what we call man hours. Do you understand that? The man hours you are writing off is money. In other words, the economic policies, the twin economic policies of the Tinubu presidency, floating of the naira and removal of a subsidy, the two of them have unleashed what we call maximum impact on Nigerians. Very negative, and it is now eroding the economy. Now, if you say that you have gained money from subsidy, have you calculated how much you lose in 1 hour? Do you understand what I'm saying? Because it is like, it is like being clever by half. When you say that you are gaining 400 billion, from subsidy removal, how much are you losing to man hour across the country? Can be less than 1 trillion a day. Do you understand that? So if that is the economic cost of the new economic policy you have brought upon Nigerians, with the attendant hardships, because we're not talking about the man hour alone, we are talking about the hardships Nigerians are undergoing. The hardships are real. Do you understand what I'm saying? People can't, the streets are practically empty every time. Why? Because many of the usual vehicles you see are no longer on the road. Do you get the point? So I believe that the fuel subsidy, even though we all agree that fuel subsidy needed to go, I believe that the way it was done is not really economically viable. It has created more problem for the economy than it has solved. Then floating of the naira, for example, ought not to have gone along with a subsidy removal, because once you float the naira, you are now compelling independent marketers and NNPC to import fuel based on international pricing. Do you understand that? So if a barrel of crude is going for $80, as it was last 2 weeks, what that means is that they will have to adjust. They have to adjust their pump to reflect the current market reality. That is exactly what is causing the problem. So what does that tell you? Where does that leave Nigeria? Since the dollar is likely to move further up. Do you understand what I'm saying? Unless the crude drastically, the international pricing of crude per barrel drastically comes down. For example, slides from $80 per barrel to something like hypothetically $50 per barrel. You're now gaining $30 whole per barrel. The fuel pump price in Nigeria will not come down.
But just because of the situation of things in Nigeria, do Nigerians even get to benefit from when prices go low? I ask because when prices go high, immediately the stock that the marketers have, they increase it because they say they now have to go back to the market. But when the reverse happens, we never see it. That's like our regular day-to-day. All the prices that have gone up never come down.
Now, you see, that is where, where you don't have government. I've always said that we don't have government. What you have in Nigeria is an elite conspiracy. The president is not there for the masses. If he's there for the masses, he should ask this question you're asking. Why are you selling the stock you purchased at $70 per barrel and paying $80 per barrel? Why? That is profiteering. Is NNPC supposed to be indulging in that? It is not. But because NNPC is running, his show without any form of supervision, without any form of query from the president, they can go on and fix the price as they want. So you are right that the price is not likely to come down, even when oil, the price of oil significantly comes down at the international pricing system. I agree with you. Why? Because what you have in Nigeria is a cartel. It's an economic cartel. People come together, hijack a section of the economy and run it the way they want. In economics, there's what you call oligopoly. Oligopoly is where you have a few suppliers, a few marketers, controlling the market. That's exactly what is going on in the energy sector. A few individuals hijacked the electricity sector. They are fixing the prices as they want, even without significant increase in the power generated and distributed. So it is the same thing that has now occurred in the petroleum sector. Because if you are jacking up like they propose that there will be 40% increase in the price of electricity, the question is there commensurate increase in the electricity you generate and distribute? So the makers of such law, why did they not tie such demand to performance? They didn't. That's why I said it's a conspiracy against the Nigerian masses. They don't care. They don't care about us. I keep saying this. Because if they do, the formulators of the law, in that energy sector example I gave, we say to give you 140% increase in the electricity tariff, there should be 40% increase in the electricity you generated and distributed. But as we speak now, we can't even generate and distribute 5,000 megawatts. Go and run a check on the Abacha administration, electricity generated under Abacha. Right? Abacha generated over 5,000 megawatts of electricity. Now, if Abacha generated 5,000 megawatts of electricity and distributed same in his time, how many years ago? That was more than 25 years ago. And today, 25 years after, you cannot generate more than that same 5,000 megawatts of electricity. What does that tell you? You have added nothing to what we got under Abacha. And meanwhile, you have committed trillions. The power sector in the last 25 years has gulped nothing less than 10 trillion. That means we spent 10 trillion naira to generate darkness. So you can see that there is something wrong with the way the country is set and run. They don't care about us. It's a cartel. Nigeria is, the Christmas turkey. Nigeria is sheared up like Christmas turkey. And that is why some bold citizens, right, have constituted themselves into militants, into terrorists, into all manner of people, headsmen, taking up territories in the country. Nigeria's sovereignty is not only challenged, it's balkanized. It's shared by, between state actors and non-state actors. There are places, why are we fighting war in the northeast? Why? It's because terrorists, Boko Haram terrorists took over a territory. And we are fighting to recover such territories for 2 decades now. We haven't quite succeeded, even though commendably our military have actually been trying. Let us be fair to them. Don't need to demoralize them by making certain statements. Yes, but they haven't won. We can't talk, and as we are fighting Boko Haram, there is a banditry that has escalated and snowballed into full-blown terrorism as well. You have the headsmen that are killing everywhere, right? Even the chief of army staff was in Plateau, Mangu, just yesterday or day before yesterday. Yes. Why? Because of the killings there. Go to the southeast, has become the capital of a non-government. People are dying every day. Why? Because non-state actors, are insisting on controlling lands, swaths of territories in Nigeria. And when they do that, what do? They kidnap, demand for ransom. In the northeast, for example, and parts of northwest, they impose tax. If you go to a place like Niger, where you have, Niger state is so big, I think only second to Borno, I don't say, I think Borno is number 1, followed by Niger and then by Kogi. This will show you, the much of the place, the farmers can't go to farm without paying tax to terrorists. The situation is that bad. That's you pay tax. In other words, one way you know that a state is in charge of an area is through tax collection. Is it not? So if Nigeria cannot collect tax in those areas terrorists do, does it not mean that our territory has been shared with those people? You are fighting to recover it. And until you recover such areas where taxes are being imposed on citizens by non-state actors, your sovereignty is challenged and balkanized.
Right. It's really interesting when you break it down like that. I would like to remind our viewers that our phone lines are open. You can call in and join the conversation. But we always speak about limitations of the government, state governments, local governments, and so on and so forth. What do you make about some of the changes we've been seeing on the path to restructuring, as they call it, or thereabouts, or true federalism, as I think some people refer to it? The amendments to the Constitution, some amendments led to, for one, when it comes to electricity, it is now something that states can get into. Yeah. The correctional facilities is now within state purview. These little things have been happening, and I just, it's a part of the conversation whenever we talk about federation account and sharing of revenue, and people start to talk about states should start, what's the word, fending for themselves. They shouldn't just depend on the money that is being shared and so on and so forth. So my question is, do you think true federalism is something that we can get by, these little, changes here and there? Like all of a sudden, people are already making bets on which Nigerian state is going to achieve 24/7 electricity first. Some people say Lagos. Some people say, if you count Abuja as a state, that's an issue in court now. But that these places might be the first to get these things. So moving now to in terms of revenue and all that, do you think there could be some of these subtle changes that could lead to this true federalism that we're looking for?
When we say true federalism, it means that there is false federalism. But for me, it's either you have federalism or you don't have federalism. Nigeria is not running a federal system yet. Nigeria is a federation only in name. Do you understand that? There are fundamental economic and political powers that must be shared between the center and the federating units for you to say that you have a federation. Now, yes, between Buhari and Tinubu, we have been able to sign away railway and electricity. That for me is revolutionary. It's a very serious leap in the right direction towards restoration of federalism. I don't know if you see the way I am approaching this.
Yeah.
I no longer like the expression what we now call restructuring. I think whoever suggested that term brought the devil into the detail. It's not restructuring. What we should be talking about is restoration. Restore Nigeria to federalism that was taken away by the military in 1966. When the military administration came in, starting with Hiroshi, they imposed the unitary system on the country. The first thing the Hiroshi did was to change the name of Nigeria from Federal Republic of Nigeria to Republic of Nigeria. So even in name, the alteration began. But later on, when Hiroshi was killed for these unitary policies, Hiroshi was killed for unitary policies, and yet they refused to restore, they refused to return the powers. Do you understand? Rather than return the powers, right? They only returned the name federal. They just returned the word federal. Before that time, let me use fiscal federalism to illustrate the issue here now. You were talking about states going to Abuja to share money. It wasn't like that in the First Republic. In the First Republic, it was the federating states. They were called regions then. They were 4 by 1963. They were the ones that were remitting money to the federation account, and not federation account remitting money to state account. You see the reversal. So when these are the kind of things we are saying we must return to. We can't run away from it. If you don't do that, the states will not act viably as federating units.
So you believe the states that are accused of not pulling their weight right now, when
they lack the powers.
They will start to do that.
The states lack certain economic powers to be able to assert themselves. Let me give you an example. If you go to a place like Anambra, where I come from, right, there is a record, and you can also physically see there is an abandoned seaport called Osakwa seaport, right? It was abandoned in 1959, right? Osakwa, is a Urashi river as a tributary that empties into the Atlantic Ocean. If you canalize Osakwa, right, that is somewhere around it's in Anambra South, right? In Anambra South, the length of that river is about 20 to 22 nautical miles into the Atlantic. So what does that tell you? All you need to do is to canalize and build a port in Anambra South. But Soludo cannot do that. Why? Because port is in the exclusive list. So states lack the power. Anambra State has an international cargo airport, but they can't activate it to that extent without approval by the federal government. Do you understand that? What that means now is that Anambra State, even though they have an international airport, they need approval from federal government to allow aircraft to fly in and out of Anambra. The highest importers in Nigeria, up to 50% of importers in Nigeria are from the southeast, and yet they have no access to the sea. They have no access to the world via the air. So when we talk about transforming the southeast into an economic environment, how do you do that without the ports? So when we say restoring Nigeria to federalism, we are saying that these economic powers trapped in the exclusive list must be devolved. The way we have devolved railway and electricity is the same way you need to move ports away from the exclusive list to concurrent list, so that a place like Anambra can give Onitsha traders and importers a port. They don't even need to spend their money doing that. All they need to do is to go into economic understanding with some foreign investors. A place like China will be glad to do something about port in the southeast, because they know that most Nigerians that come to China to buy things are coming from the southeast. Now, the way it is, they are compelled to import their goods through Lagos. Do you see the problem? So rather than import through the eastern flank, and if you look at the distance between Lagos and a place like Aba or Onitsha to Europe, Europe is closer to Onitsha than to Lagos. But these people are compelled to go there because they can't give themselves a port. Even the cargo airport built for that purpose cannot be activated because you need approval of the federal government, which hasn't come. So Anambra for now is enjoying an international airport as a local airport. Do you see where our contradictions are coming from? Now, look at the country's what you may call a maritime coast. It covers up to 20 states in Nigeria, stretching from Lagos down to the entirety of South, Delta, all of them, even nearly every, in fact, up to 3 states in the southeast, Anambra, Imo, and Abia. Because if you go to Abia, there is a place, there is a place we call Azumili. Azumili is a river, a blue river, that is also about 20 nautical miles into the Atlantic. But it cannot be used because Abia state government does not have the power to activate it. So why force Lagos to be the only import hub for Nigeria, import and export hub? It's wrong. We are doing ourselves. You know why I say so? You are now forcing Nigerian importers who are passing through hell to even move your goods from a Apapa port. Your trailer coming out of Lagos can take a week. Demurrage accumulating there. So what some of these importers do is to go to Benin Republic. So who is losing? Is it not Nigeria? So why don't you develop the country's coastal line from Lagos up to Abuja? Do you understand that? Develop it. You dredge River Niger up to Baru in Niger State.
Well, what you describe now it goes back to what you said before. It's as though the federal government has beaten more than it can.
Yes, we assumed all the responsibilities, economic, social, everywhere. Federal government.
But going forward,
why should it be?
But going forward, with the concessions they've made, what are your predictions or what are your thoughts as to how do you go? Let's use electricity for example. How do you think that would turn out?
You see, the concessions are too few. Do you understand what I'm saying? They are too few, just too few. We need to restore the country to federalism. I'm not advocating that we should go back to regionalism as obtained in the First Republic. I don't think it's visible now. But I believe you can hand back the powers enjoyed by the regions to states as federating units. There is no state in Nigeria that is not viable. Do you understand what I'm saying? If you give them access to their natural resources. Look at this Nasarawa. I keep talking about Nasarawa state because I'm aware that Nasarawa has more than 20 solid minerals. But they cannot touch it. Why? Because it's on the exclusive list. The gold chase in Zamfara and places like that. Why is it happening? It's because gold is a solid mineral that is on the exclusive list. Because federal government is more interested in oil, crude oil, they turn their eyes and allow individuals to criminally mine the gold. So if you go to Zamfara, you will see Chinese companies working with artisanal miners. Do you understand what I'm saying? With some generals and some big men, retired this, former that, they are the ones mining the gold. Some of them are richer than Zamfara State. These are inherent contradictions in our system. You need to change all these things if you really want to allow Nigeria as a country to breathe. You must move solid minerals to the concurrent list so that the states will have access to their natural resources. Nasarawa State, all it needs to do is to bring in foreign investors. And in a decade, they will become what they will be competing with Lagos. But they don't want to do that. If you, for example, allow the Southeast to develop Azumini into a port and develop West Aqua into a port, more than half of the pressure that Lagos is undergoing today will vanish. But they don't want to do that. They are more interested in the economy. You know what is accruing to Lagos State is the sixth largest economy in Africa. Really? Yet it's the worst state to live in. Go and check records. The worst state to live in. Why? Because Lagos is congested. Why is Lagos congested? Because it is made the only economic hub of the country. It is made the only maritime hub of the country. You need to decentralize these things where nature has put such accesses. That's why I keep talking about port. I gave the example of the Southeast, and I have mentioned two places, two rivers that are less than 20 nautical miles into the Atlantic. That once you dredge, you understand what I'm saying? Once you canalize, small ships can come into those places. If it takes an importer from Lagos, about 10 million naira to move his goods from Apapa to Onitsha. That is excluding the money he has to pay to customs and all the people he must pass along the road, the military, the police. Do you understand what I'm saying? You have to pay these tolls if you want to get to Onitsha. If you do this, if you allow this import to pass through the Southeast, it's not every importer from the Southeast and South that will now be moving to Lagos. That way, the economy of Benin Republic, in fact, somebody told me that Benin Republic is now the 37th state of Nigeria. And it is true. President Tinubu at a point even had to say, look, let us allow cars to be imported through road. Why? Because he knows that our importers are clearing their cars in the port. So rather than allow Nigerian ports to be developed, to decongest Lagos ports, you are saying let us pass through roads. In other words, you are still retaining the servicing of these ports in other countries by Nigerian business people. Nigerians are suffering. Do you know that Nigerians can't fly to Europe now without going to other countries? Go and check what you pay from here to UK and from here, from a Ghana or a Benin Republic or from Niger to the same UK, the same British airline. Do you understand? Check the cost. The difference is over 70%.
All right.
So the question is, it not the same aviation fuel? Is it not the same flight? What is the distance between Lagos and Ghana?
Yeah,
to warrant such variation in pricing is because our own leaders are not there for us. They don't like us. I keep saying this.
All right. We hope that they can, hear such statements and feel the need to prove citizens wrong.
I hope they do.
Yes, and you really raised a lot of food for thought that we'll think on and work on. Hopefully the right persons are also listening. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure having you. The
pleasure is mine also. Thank you for hosting me.
I've been speaking with Dr. Law Mefor. He's a social scientist and policy analyst, and has been talking about the Federation allocation account and how the monies were shared between the governments, and also the issue of true federalism, as they call it, or federalism, and the way forward, what could be in store for Nigeria. That's how I end the program for today. Remember, the POLITY reaches you live from Abuja, 2 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. We'll end it here now, but I'll leave you with some reports to catch you up to speed. See you tomorrow. I am Amadin Ogbewe. Bye for now.